Hello everybody, it's Armchair. The last couple of videos are kind of going to be tied in with this one. One where I kind of gushed about Europe and brought up my experience with the South Coast Youth Symphony Orchestra, as well as something that I neglected to bring up from my previous video, like my latest one, other than this one, and that is my history with the church. Those all tie into my experience with music, which I only briefly touched on, but I will go more in depth here. And in case you don't know, I guess I'll bring this up here first, since I mentioned the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church's music culture is absolutely huge. There's no doubt in my mind that you've probably heard of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. There's like a non-zero chance that you've heard their music. Sometimes I go to air shows and their version of Anchors Aweigh sometimes plays during the Navy Legacy flight, when the F-35, the Growler demo team, or the West Coast Rhino demo team, they fly alongside warbirds. I've heard that rendition of Anchors Aweigh a couple of times. But most famously, they are utilized during what's called General Conference, which is an event that happens 2 times a year, and their headquarters in Salt Lake City. A bunch of leaders in the church, higher up leaders in the church, they gather together and they share messages. So the choir sings well-known church tunes during then, and then sometimes they'll have like an intermediate music event that happens in either the evening or the morning of the last day of General Conference. And sometimes they'll have Christmas events where the choir gets together and they have an orchestral accompaniment and they play Christmas tunes. Needless to say, it is a huge part of the church's culture. Most notably, the need to excel and perfect, and also to spiritually uplift. I think that's what kind of made people try to motivate me to pick up my violin and keep playing, even when I had no time to do so, especially nowadays. But back then it was a different story. I was never really told to play an instrument as a kid, but when I was growing up, the only kind of music that I would ever have the patience to listen to was classical. The first CD that I ever intently listened to was a Baroque era CD. It's like a top 100s list kind of album set, but one of the CDs, it goes over, well, each CD goes over different eras, and the one that I kept listening to, it mostly had Baroque era pieces. And then I realized that I could play these pieces if I wanted to, and if I ever learned them. Because at some point, I don't remember what motivated my family to do it. I think the first time was at my grandma's, because I was there, and then all of a sudden I was given the opportunity to try and play a violin for the first time. And my parents never fail to over-exaggerate the story. And they tell me that as soon as I picked it up, I knew exactly what to do with the violin, and I started playing it properly. They were very excited with how well I was playing it already. And I don't believe that for a goddamn second. Like, out of all of the things that didn't happen, this didn't happen the most. I would never subscribe to the explanation of, I'm just musically gifted, so that's how I was able to tack on to this. No, I'm just passionate about what I like. I'm very one-track minded with my interests, and I'm easily invested in the stuff that I do. I'm autistic, what can I say? I mean, look at what the fuck I'm playing. My passion for Ace Combat simply feeds into my obsession in the world of aviation that I've been engrossed in for nearly my entire life. And I wasn't immediately good at playing Ace Combat when I picked it up for the first time. I actually scared myself off for a couple of months when I first picked up Ace Combat 4, because when I tried to do a loop and crashed, I thought I killed a real pilot because I didn't know how video games worked. But eventually I picked it up again, kept playing it, and eventually flying in Ace Combat just feels like second nature, to the point where I can have intimate discussions while I play it. Hell, if I was good at another game, I would probably use that as background footage instead of this, if I ever came up with this channel. I'm not perfect by any means of the imagination, but I've put tens of thousands of hours in the entire franchise of Ace Combat. I'm pretty invested, and I'm pretty well-rounded with the rules of the game and just how it all works, really. I'm not a gifted player, it just took a lot of practice. Another example, I do photography. I didn't immediately pick it up and take the greatest photos. It took time to not only learn how to use my equipment properly and unleash the full power of my cameras, but also handling the photos after I've taken them. If I shoot in RAW format, I'm not just going to post them as is on Instagram. I'm going to figure out what can I do to enhance this photo and make it look more like it's my own style. What can I do to give it the vibe that I want it to have? That takes years of learning and finagling, and lots of varieties of experimentation. I'm not gifted at that kind of thing. All of that takes time and practice. I am not naturally gifted at playing the violin. I keep trying to explain that to my family, but they don't really seem to tack on to that. All they can really see was my passion for music and how I was able to... I guess I was sort of a quick study when it comes to the violin and learning to play it when I was a kid. But I looked back at some of the recordings that my parents have made of me playing alongside my dad on his guitar. Like, I would play country songs and stuff. And it it doesn't sound like high art or anything. It just sounds like a kid playing the violin, but the kid knows how to play the violin at least competently, and you know what song I'm trying to play, where it's less scratchy than any other kid would. You know what I mean? As I've said before in the previous video where I talked about my Europe trip, it has taken me far. And I say again, it's taken me to Europe. My passion for music back then was sky high. I didn't know where it would take me, or if it would take me anywhere specifically, but I was along for the ride. I was very excited to learn that my talent could be shared worldwide, and also even more intimately in the church. The Mormon Church, during their sacrament meetings, sometimes they have musical events where the primary kids would get up and sing songs during the entire last 2/3 of the meeting. That doesn't happen too often, but sometimes that can happen. Or there's like an intermediate, not really a music number that people join in to sing along to, but sometimes someone will bring their guitar or their cello or their flute or whatever, and some young adults will go up and sing a church tune. And yes, sometimes I was invited to play my violin during those meetings, and I happily did so. I can't really say that I carried them or anything, especially if there was someone singing. They're the subject, I'm just trying to do my part. Regardless, for some reason, I would get the most compliments out of anybody there. Which didn't really make sense, but, I rolled with it for a little while. And I'm sure in the back of everyone's minds, they thought, this guy is going to go so far musically. I just know it. I feel it in my knees. But when I started figuring out what I wanted to do for college, especially now that I know what I actually want to do for college, not engineering, but geography, music doesn't really feel like a part of anything that I would want to do professionally. So those priorities started falling to the wayside. I'm sure there are some people in the church that still think I actively play the violin, but when they learn that I'm not doing that anymore, I'm not pursuing that anymore, they're gonna be like, well, why'd you stop? You should pick it up again. But I'm not gonna be as good. I'm not as well-rounded as I used to be, and just being good at music doesn't really seem like a priority. As I said, it's a nice thing to look back upon, and it's had a lot of great experiences, but I don't know, it just doesn't really seem like a priority. And one thing that I kind of put together relatively recently was the perfectionist culture. As I said, these people thought I was going to go far musically. They'll just look back at what I've done before and look forward to what I could do in the future, which has no relation to what I'm actually doing right now. They'll come up with this imaginary scenario in their minds based on my music talent that I had gained from practice before, and they're gonna think, this guy's gonna be the next fucking Lindsey Sterling. No, Lindsey Sterling is famous because she's Lindsey Sterling. I'm me, because I played like I would, right? I didn't really have an aim to be famous, and yet all of these people, they thought, this guy needs to go far because he's talented. And eventually my music journey stopped making a lot of sense. It wasn't that I wanted to do it because I motivated myself to play. It's that I was upholding this image because other people wanted to see me that way. Because seeing me that way would bring comfort into their minds. Because the image of me playing music, well, it's familiar to them. And as I started living by myself, I did bring my violin with me for one semester. Well, actually, no. My first year. So I had it with me for 2 semesters of my first year. And I just never picked it up. And I just realized, yeah, this isn't really for me anymore. I did teach. I don't know if it was between my freshman and sophomore year, or if it was just during COVID because I just needed to find some work or something, or make a little bit of money for myself. But even that stopped very quickly. It wasn't really anything too big. I was just teaching 1 or 2 people how to play the violin, just teaching them the fundamentals. And yeah, again, that didn't last long. And I'm kind of glad it didn't, because I'm wondering how aimless it would have all felt if I kept going down that path, not really knowing where I was really gonna go. It's not like I'm gonna whip out my violin when I'm doing commercial drone work or something like that. Or if I'm teaching a photography class, it's not like I'm gonna play fucking, I don't know, Dvorak's Symphony No. 9 Movement 4 during the class. like that doesn't fit, although the mismatch is very, very funny to think about. But that just wouldn't work. So, yeah. Now, I am fortunate to have the experiences that I've had already over the past, I guess, a bit over a decade of just learning how to play music and indulging myself into those interests. I'm very fortunate to have been able to play in Europe when I did. All of the experiences, almost all of them, I look upon fondly. It's not out of the realm of possibility that I pick up my violin again, just as a hobby. Just learn how to play for myself because I want to play along something by ear, or print out some sheet music and try to play along that. I might not even tell my family or my friends that I did so, because I don't want to worry about being their perfect little violin player. But yeah, long story short, priorities are in better places at the moment. Not that it's a competition, but I guess more prevalent places is a better way to put it. But you move on, you be better, but don't be afraid to circle back on something just to see how it goes. I very well could do that. Pick up my violin and learn how to play Emperor's Waltz again or something. Not because I feel like I'm gifted at playing it, not because I ever felt like I was, but because I want to. That's the best reason anyone could have to do anything. I'm not gifted, because being gifted is not a thing. No one can ever be gifted. I can never be gifted. I'm just passionate. Hope that was interesting. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again very soon.